All right. It's going to pop on in. Hey, folks, it's Michael Taylor here, your host of Theater Corner Green Room. And I'm here with our lovely co host.
Kathryn Smith-McGlynn.
And we have a fantastic person here in the house. Tell us who we got.
We have the fabulous Jacole Kitchen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes. And Jacole is at Jolla Playhouse right now.
Yes.
Yes. Director, casting, as well as arts, community engagement. Okay. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's about time.
Uh-oh.
Just gonna put that out there
she's
right away.
She's right. It is. I love that.
So, Jacole, let's just pop it off with saying what you're working on right now, because you're directing a show, yes?
Yes, I am currently directing a show in Los Angeles. It's a show that I first got involved as part of La Jolla Playhouse's DNA New Work series. It is a one-woman show called Suburban Black Girl. Writer and performer Zakiya Young, it is her account of growing up as the black girl in predominantly white spaces, growing up in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, and the way that you have to sort of decide if you are going to assimilate to fit in, or if you are going to choose to own your blackness in a way that might isolate you from a lot of your community when you're growing up in those kind of spaces. And so Zakiya plays 27 different characters from her life as we go through the course of the play, and she takes us from childhood up until present day, and we meet a lot of the people that have influenced her. But one of the main points of the story, Zakiya first started writing it in 2021 when we were at the height of the pandemic, at the height of social reckoning, and she was seeing herself in a different way and recognizing her own blackness and figuring out a new place of where she felt like she belonged in this society. And she started speaking on it and started noticing the reactions that she was getting from people who knew a younger Zakiya, a more assimilated Zakiya. And so that's where the story was born, and yeah, she takes us on this journey. It's really exciting to be part of it.
And it's a one-woman show, right?
It is a one-woman show, yes.
And how is that different from directing a show where there are multiple cast members, and plus she's the creator of the show?
And she's the playwright. So it's a much different process, and that's what we keep reminding ourselves all throughout. We're in our first week of rehearsal. We had our first week of rehearsal in LA, and I just came home to be able to be here with you all. And throughout the week, we just kept reminding ourselves, this is going to be a different process. Nothing about this is going to look how a traditional, where normally you come into rehearsal and everybody sits around the table, you read the play out loud, you start doing what we call table work, where we're just discussing and going through the play, and all right, moment by moment, what do you think is going on here? But Zakiya and I have done 2 workshops together of this play, and now we're getting to put it on its feet for the first time. So we didn't need to have that table work process in the same way. But with her being the playwright, we're stopping and we're making changes and saying, all right, do we still need this section? I feel like this is left over from a previous draft, so we need to make this make sense now. How about we move this around? So the play is constantly changing, and Zakiya herself is constantly having to switch hats between the actor and the playwright. So we have to give a lot of space and grace for that and slow the process down.
So are you melding your visions? Is it Zakiya's vision? Is it your vision? Do you help inform her maybe a little bit?
It's become all of our vision, and that's the thing that we love about theater. It is pure collaboration. And so she wrote the words. She has an absolute idea of what she thinks it wants to look like, what it wants to flow like, but then I'm sitting and creating the visual picture with her, and now working with a team of designers who are putting their elements in to help support the storytelling, because with a one-woman show or a one-person show, that's a lot of pressure to tell the entire story. And again, she's switching characters so quickly and playing all of the different people that we need that support from the other design elements. So we're adding projections in to see some of the actual moments in Zakia's life. So some of the projections will be of her in these predominantly white. I mean, she was the black girl in the white sorority. You know, this is the life that we're talking about here. And so you'll see pictures from her life, but then as she's describing world events that are happening, we'll be reminded of what those world events. She talks about the Crown Act. She talks about the Divine Nine, you know, and rather than trying to take a moment to explain to people what the Divine Nine is, you know, she does say in the play, Google it. But then we can have some projection support to, so all of our visions are melding
together. And it's such a, I'm sure it resonates even differently today than it did when she was thinking about it in 2020 at a time where now, you know, I think culture's like, well, you know, maybe I don't want to assimilate. You know?
Absolutely. And it has changed so much even in the last, so she started writing this in 2021, I believe, as a response to what was happening in the world. And each time, so the first time I workshopped it with her was in December of 2023. From even then until now, she's a completely different human. The world is an even more different place. She was so deeply in it when she first started writing it, and now she has a little bit more of a step back from it and a different perspective on it all. So things that felt very precious in the early days, she's like, nope, we don't need that anymore. That's not really relevant. I don't need to tell that part of the story. I'd rather get to this meat. And so the story is continuing to evolve as we tell it.
Yeah.
And so here she is. I see she goes from kind of a natural hair to this straight hair. Is that?
That's I don't want to give too much away.
That's
but
right.
That is part of the evolution. But yes, what you're showing right here is from the DNA reading, the reading that we did in December of 23. And that was just Zakia and a music stand for 90 minutes, you know.
Wow.
And so again, that pressure of the storytelling all being on her. And so now being able to add in music and the projections and the scenic elements to help. And and so she now has things from her life to bring in.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
when
really exciting.
When does it run for folks that are in LA?
For folks that are in LA or really Southern California in general, it's not
that's
that
right.
far of a trip. Hop on the train, the coaster goes
That's
right
right.
to LA.
Right.
But we run April 19th through May 13th. And performances are Saturday through Tuesday at Outside In Theater. It's a great little theater in Highland Park. They're still rebuilding they're still building their main theater space, but we're in their black box theater. There's only 45 seats, so get your tickets now if you're going to come and see the show and you want to come and see this show.
And I believe we have a link on our Instagram.
Excellent.
To tickets.
Yes.
So.
Yes, Suburban Black Girl, Outside In.
Wow. And so, being a director, could you just, like in really simple terms, like describe what is it exactly that a director? I mean, we can kind of guess, but and is every director approach isn't the same?
That's absolutely true. Okay, that's a hard question, Michael. All right. Summing up, in essence, what is a director? I will say, for me, being a director is taking the playwright's vision and putting it on stage. For me, it all begins with the words, and everything I do is paying honor to what the playwright wrote. And so for me, as I'm reading a play, I'm already starting to visualize it. That's kind of how I know if it's a good project for me.
Okay.
If as I'm reading it, I can see the people, I can see the places where they are, and, you know, by no means am I pre-blocking the play. I don't go into rehearsal saying, all right, stand here, you stand here. I come into rehearsal, I always tease my actors that I actually come in with no ideas. I need them to bring ideas in, and then I build off of what they bring into the room. But, so yes, essentially my job is to bring the words on the page into a three-dimensional life in collaboration with all of the artists who I get to work with.
Do you think you have a style, a personal style?
I do. I do. I'm still working on naming it, but other people name it back to me.
Yep.
And there was a moment in rehearsal even the other day where Zakia just said, how nice it is just to have the space to just show up as her most authentic self. She doesn't have to feel like she has to, you know, take a note that she doesn't believe in and then go and stew on it, that we can actually get into and have a conversation. And to me, that's one of the most important things. I don't want anybody that I'm working with, to ever feel like they have a question that's unanswered, or that they don't have the space to show up as their absolute most authentic self. And so that's part of my style, is creating that space where we give grace. We are all humans, and we show up as humans. Yes, I have expectations. I have a standard of professionalism, absolutely. But I think that people will show up as their absolute best selves when they can show up as their most authentic selves. And so I do my best to create a space where they can do that.
So we understand you wear many hats.
Oh, there we go.
I do, and so many more. Great segue, Michael. I do. I wear a number of hats in my life. Literally, my stepmom had those hats made for me because I'm constantly wearing hats and having to switch hats very quickly in my role at La Jolla Playhouse. So she had those made for me.
Look at that. Well, which one do we want to talk about? We talked about the director.
Yeah, we've had the director hat on, yes.
Where do you want to go? Producer or director?
I would say let's go to producer, because that producer encompasses a lot of what I do. I mean, there are several sub-hats underneath producer, for sure. But a lot of the work that I do at La Jolla Playhouse is not necessarily producing what's on the main stage, what we know of as the shows at La Jolla Playhouse. I am, I'm the casting director at La Jolla Playhouse, have been, but where producing comes in for me, it's really connecting people. And so one of my roles at the Playhouse has been the Director of Arts Engagement. And what that encompasses is just meeting people where they are and seeing cool things that they're doing and finding ways to authentically engage with it and support it in the ways that the Playhouse knows how to do. And so a lot of that is, so last night was the La Jolla Playhouse Gala, and we are here, but we're here early. I shut down the gala last night.
He shut it down.
I shut it down. But last night, one of the part of the entertainment featured 10 members of the Voices of Our City Choir, which is actually, they're just up the street. They operate out of St. Paul's Cathedral. And Voices of Our City was co-founded and is currently run by Steph Johnson, who just saw a need within her community. I think it was 8 or 9 years ago. 2016 is when they first were founded. And Steph just saw a need in her community, and there was a lot of, she was living downtown. She saw how many unhoused people there were, and she had a gift that she knew she could give, which was the gift of music. And she would just go with her guitar, and it started with literally just Steph and her guitar on the street and just singing with people and asking, hey, do you want to sing with me? What song do you like? What do you want to sing? And then more people started to come. And then they needed a space to do it, and she created Voices of Our City Choir, and still every Monday they have an open rehearsal where people can come in and just sing together and be in community and have coffee and be in a place where they feel human and whole and creative. And so I was connected with Steph through my work at La Jolla Playhouse as community engagement. And we just realized this, I always call it a partnership made in arts engagement heaven, because the unhoused community was one that we had often talked about. I lead a group at the Playhouse Leadership Council, and we always talk about what communities do we need to be reaching, who are we not touching, and the unhoused come up often. But I know that that's not a community that you can go into and say, hey, we're putting on a show. Like, we're going to do this thing for you. And then leave. You have to have resources. You have to understand that community. You have to have an in with that community. You have to build trust with that community.
Right.
And then I met Steph, who has those resources and who has that trust and who understands the community. And so that we can come in and now meld what we do. We always laugh. I say that they give us street cred and we give them sort of industry cred. And so last night, 10 members of the choir were singing at our gala, singing Seasons of Love behind 3 Broadway performers. And 2 of the choir members got to do a little solo in Seasons of Love. And it's because we have this partnership. We do a theater workshop together where they're now devising a theater piece and telling their story. And just these organic partnerships. And again, I was just introduced to Steph. Somebody said, oh, you know who you should meet? That's so cool that you do this. We say that Kelly Clarkson brought us together because Steph and the choir were on the Kelly Clarkson show. And a woman that I know who was one of my mentors in this business happened to have a client on the Kelly Clarkson show. They met, and Victoria said to Steph, you need to meet Jacole. She's at La Jolla Playhouse. This is the work she's doing. And it was born from there.
What brought you into that specifically, that type of inclusionary work?
It was I've always been very community oriented, whether I knew it or not. One of my first roles in this industry, I was a talent agent. And I was a talent agent for theater actors, directors, and choreographers bicoastally. And that whole job is connecting people. And there's the sort of surface part of it where you get the breakdowns, you submit to the casting directors, they see who you want to see, you pitch, you negotiate. That was the part that was not for me, you know. I always say I wasn't actually an agent. I just played one in my real life. You know, you go through, you do. But I was good at it because I built relationships. And even to this day, in my role as the casting director at the Playhouse, I'm working with people who knew me as an assistant at the agency, and we all kind of came up in the industry together. And 10 years later, we're going, oh my gosh, I loved working with you then. I'm excited to be working with you again, because it's about relationship building.
Which isn't easy. It's not.
Which I didn't realize, because I didn't know that's a skill set, because it is something that just sort of comes easy to me. If somebody says, I have this need and I can fill it, I'm going to do my best to fill it.
Right.
Like that's not a question to me. And so people started knowing that they could come to me. I mean, I got known in a certain sect where people knew they could call and say, all right, I need a 5'10" ballerina that can be on point with blue eyes and, you know, can do it on her head. I'm like, all right, give me 10 minutes, you know, because I wanted to help. And I didn't realize at the time that that was community until I got here in San Diego, and the theater community in San Diego is so strong. And I was immediately embraced by this community. And so I kept doing what I do. I kept making connections and providing opportunities for people where I could. And so my first role at La Jolla Playhouse, it's been 8 years. I'm about to be on my 4th title at La Jolla Playhouse. But Artistic Programs Manager was my very first title. It was a brand new role that they were still trying to figure out what it was. But they had at the time 2 very large grants that had come in that were both community-based. One was, what are you doing outside of the Playhouse? How are you reaching the community where they are? And the other was, how are you making the Playhouse more welcoming to people who wouldn't normally come there? And so then I just jumped in with both feet. It was just like, okay, I'm going outside of connecting people within connecting talent to casting, going outside of the casting realm and connecting people that way. And I'm putting both feet in the community and connecting that way.
And it sounds like it was your path is so organic, you know, and a lot of times these days people are just checking off boxes and you're not doing that.
Yeah, I never have. I said a long time ago, like, you make a plan and God laughs at you. And it's just like, try this. And so I actually was a terrible interviewer when I was younger, because you sit down in those interviews and, so what's your 5-year plan? And I would literally say, I don't have one. I am going to be present where I'm at and do the best job that I can and see where that's going to take me from there. And in those days, that wasn't a welcomed answer, you know. People thought that meant I had no ambition. But it really meant I'm just open. I'm open to see what the world is going to bring to me, what opportunities are going to come to me. And I always say I've gotten to where I am because I recognize an opportunity when I see one. If it feels like something that is within my capability and feels like something that will challenge me in a way that is going to keep me moving forward, then I say yes to it. And it's, people always say, how do you become a casting director? How do you become a director? I don't know how you become a casting director, but I can tell you how I became one. But it has been a very winding path, but it has been a very organic.
I love that. Everyone take note. Take note of that.
And let's not assume that everybody knows what a casting director does. That's also, I mean...
True.
Very true.
Especially in a theater. I mean, we can kind of imagine in a film, but in a theater, and how crucial that job is as well.
It is, and we are the casting directors are the first line of defense. It starts with just having an understanding of the project and having conversations with the director, or if it's a new play, the playwright, and getting what their vision is. Again, it's all about honoring the vision of the creators of the art. And so as the casting director, I have to have a good understanding of who these characters are to the people who created them, or to the director. And so we have conversations about who would prototypes be. This is a young Meryl Streep. I need, this is Denzel 20 years ago. So these are, they also give modern references, but current,
Gotta love those breakdowns.
Yeah. But so I start to get that idea in my head, those visuals, and then we make lists of actors that we think would match up. We go out to agents. We go out to the actors themselves. We have a big mailing list that we say, hey, this is what we're currently casting, if you want to submit for a role. And then we, from there, kind of start putting the puzzle piece together. These people, I think, would fit into this role. And we just present people to the creative team, to the director. We set up the auditions, or a lot of it is done by tape these days, send us a video and go from there. But so I'm trying to put pieces together that would honor what my understanding of their vision for the play is. And then we go from there, and this is who we have to present, and then we have conversations. They say, okay, we like these people, and start narrowing it down. So we're the communication between the creative teams and the actors.
And it's really, you're trying to get a composite too of the whole, not just all the moving pieces, so that it all fits. And the larger the cast, I would imagine, the more challenging.
Absolutely. Or are there family dynamics that you're trying to match up with? And people, something that I wish actors really understood is casting decisions 95% of the time have nothing to do with what you actually did in the room.
Yeah.
There are so many factors that are going into it. And it's hard because a lot of times actors will ask for feedback, and I wish I had constructive feedback to give, but a lot of times I don't. They just responded stronger to this person, or this person matched. We need siblings, and this is the one person we knew we wanted for this role, and this person matched as a sibling a little bit better. Or a lot of times there's somebody that we're looking at that could play a number of different roles, but then we find somebody who's exactly right for one of the roles. There's been a time, and I'm not exaggerating, there was a time where a lot of the people in the room really liked this one particular actor. I will say me on the casting team, the director, my casting associate, we were all like, yeah, this one. And the playwright just wasn't on board. And finally we got down to it, and she said, you know what? He reminds me so much of my ex-boyfriend.
Oh, jeez.
And I just, it's the energy. I know that I will not have a good, and it wasn't even that I can't look at him because I hate him. And it was it's a
vibe.
It's a vibe.
Yeah.
And it was one that she couldn't release, and because it's a new work, and she would be very much, and she's building this character. This is the first time they're doing a production. They're building this character, and she's like, I can't build it off of him. And that has nothing to there's nothing, I can't say that to that actor.
No.
Right.
You know?
Oh,
and it has nothing to do with what he did in the room. He was great. We all loved him, Or So I try to communicate with actors as much as we can now, as much as I can, because I realize how much information they don't have about what's going on.
Yeah,
I was, sorry, quick story. Good. This is why casting is hard. There was an actor in town who I absolutely adore, and he came in for a role, and I was advocating completely for him because I thought he was great. I loved what he did for this role. But we went another way. But I'm like, I love this actor. I'm going to keep it. I love him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went and saw a show that he was in, and it was a very drastically different role. But he was so good in that. And after the character's name was Julian in the play that I had been casting. And I came up to him after the show, and I was just like, oh my gosh, you were so good. Wow, that was a far cry from Julian, but oh my gosh, amazing. What he heard is, you were great in this show. It was a far cry from the thing you didn't get cast in because you weren't very good in that role.
Oh my.
And so he was devastated by that comment.
Of course.
Oh my.
And took that home with him. And
Yeah.
luckily, he's friends with a very good friend of mine. And so I was able to understand what happened and apologize and go back and tell. But he had no idea how hard I was advocating for him for that other project, or how much I just adored him as an actor. So now I do try to communicate as much as I can, offer what feedback I can, release folks from projects when we know it's not going any further. But it's challenging.
And especially now with taped auditions, and you're not in the room as much anymore. Sometimes you just go straight to the director, the producer, and they'll cast you from a tape.
Yeah.
And it's all about, who was able to hit the nail on the head without direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
You know?
and I do think that part is unfair, because there's a lot of times when I'm watching tapes and I'm going, okay, that isn't the right direction for that line, but I want to see what the director will do with them. I'm gonna keep them in the pile because I want to see them work with them. So we always end up, I will say, not even if we start with taped auditions, we will have in-person auditions. With theater, you can't really cast from tape. We had a situation, we were doing Zoom auditions for a while, or even hybrid auditions, and there was a show that I was casting for the Playhouse, and the director was in LA, but the playwright was in New York. And so we did these hybrid sessions where I went to LA and met up with the director, and we did auditions there, and the playwright and New York casting director Zoomed in. And then they held a session in New York where the playwright and New York casting director were live, and then me and the director Zoomed in. And when we were finished all of the sessions and we were going over who we all liked, unanimously we liked who we saw in person. That's who we responded to, and because we didn't see the same thing when we're sitting in LA watching it on Zoom. We're not seeing the same thing that they're seeing.
Right.
And so I think in person is an essential part of theater casting, and hopefully we'll get back to more
get a
of
little bit
that.
back to that.
Yeah.
Technology is great, but
Technology is great, but we can't depend on it for everything. Exactly.
So you, with all of these hats, well, producer and casting, and you're directing is gonna be your main thing at some point. How do you feel that those other hats kind of inform you as a director? How does that make how does that fit in with you're being a director? Because not all directors get a chance to play those roles.
Yeah.
They go from acting to directing maybe in some cases. But how does all those roles sort of enhance or inform your directorship?
Yeah, I think the way that you worded it is that they all do enhance, that I had the opportunity to work with so many different types of artists in different ways, that I have, how do I want to say it? It's a really good question, because it all does inform what I do in the room. And I think maybe that's part of where allowing the space to be human comes into play, because I'm now seeing how That is such a great question that I'm having such a hard time articulating. Like, I know it. I know it by feeling.
Right.
But absolutely, I think that being a producer makes me a better director for sure, because I have an understanding of all of the elements.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let me break this down. Let me take it one piece at a time, and I might be able to answer. So yeah, being a producer helps me as a better director because I understand the elements, but I also understand what's going on the other side.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, and so a lot of times you get impatient if communication isn't happening as quickly as you would like it to, or if yes, you have an understanding of, okay, but I know that the process is happening.
Correct.
And so you can trust the process a little bit better. Yeah. I think as a director, having experience as a producer, I think as a casting director, it helps me as a director because it informs how I'm seeing the individual roles. I'm going to move us on to the next question because I'm sounding very inarticulate right now.
No, it's okay.
I know it, but I'm having a hard time with words.
Well, we got to reveal that you had the gala last night.
Yes.
at La Jolla Playhouse. But to give you a time to kind of think things through, I forgot to do this at the top, and to let everybody know this show is brought to you by the Mental Bar, Workaholic Cold Brew, modern coffee for the modern achiever. And there you have it. and now we're back. And so with casting, say like 3 Summers of Lincoln, which is playing now,
yes.
You wouldn't necessarily be involved with that because that's coming from somewhere else.
Well, it's actually starting at the Playhouse. So it's been workshopped. We've done a number of workshops over the last couple of years. But I am involved in the casting process. So I'm the in-house casting director at La Jolla Playhouse. And my main role with that hat is making sure that the San Diego local artist community have opportunities in our shows. And so I'll hold auditions. There, with a show like 3 Summers of Lincoln that has been doing workshops, there are going to be a number of people who are already attached to it. Quentin...
Yeah, Q
yes.
that they call.
Yes, Q has been with the show from the beginning, from a very early workshop. A number of those artists have. And so by the time we're ready to produce and are ready to cast it, we have... we're looking at, okay, what roles are available? What roles do we feel like we have the talent in San Diego to fill? And so I'll do a casting session and bring local actors in. And then I will be part of the casting sessions that go on in New York where they're bringing New York actors in to fill those same roles. And then we're having conversations about the folks on both coasts and how that all fits into the puzzle.
Wow.
So yeah, there are a number of folks in 3 Summers of Lincoln that are San Diego local artists. Oh gosh, I'm testing myself here. I'm going to get in trouble if I miss one. But Bets Malone is a beloved San Diego artist, does a lot of shows at Moonlight. She is one of the 3 women in the show, maybe 4 women. 3 women characters, 4 female actors. Gino Carr is a San Diego local actor who was actually in the original company of Come From Away. The actor who plays Lewis Douglas is Magic Mosley, San Diego local artist. So
wow.
So yeah, so that's part of my role, is to make sure that the San Diego community is involved.
An in-house mandate of sort, or is that...
A little bit of everything. In-house mandate. I mean, mandate is a very strong
word. That is a very strong word. I couldn't catch it. I couldn't catch it after it left my lips. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so there's a number of factors. One, absolutely community building. I think that there was a period of time where the Old Globe and La Jolla Playhouse were a little bit known even within this community as a place that San Diego actors couldn't get hired. and
Yeah.
that was not false.
Right.
When that was not completely false, but that was part of my role when I came on. It was always a part of the Playhouse. There was a person who filled a role of local casting, but when I came on, it became a very, very dedicated, this is something that we're focused on. There are also, of course, budgetary reasons that it is great to hire locals.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we do have a number, but now it is set in the budgets to have a number of San Diego local actors in each show. And that number, varies based on the size of the company or the budget for the show.
I want to come back a little bit to your community engagement and there's a project you were involved in with veterans, and talk a little bit about, Michael here's a veteran of which military branch?
I'm not familiar with any other, but it's the Marine Corps. I didn't know that there were
Love
these
it,
other. Yeah.
Yes, there are several other
Okay,
branches of
sorry.
the military, Michael. Even right here in San Diego.
go.
Even here.
Yes, even here in San Diego. But no, with that, I mean, right here in San Diego, we do have the Marines, the Navy, and the Coast Guard. This is a place that a lot of people get stationed, but this is also a place where a lot of people stay. And so there is an extremely robust veteran community here, and people don't often think about the cross-section of veterans and the arts, or the military
Right, no.
and the arts. You don't put those things
No.
together. But you have but people are still humans, and people still have a creative spirit that needs to be nourished. And one of my first projects when I came on at the Playhouse as artistic programs manager was we had another grant. A lot of my origin story at La Jolla Playhouse is very grant-based, but I will say that these things immediately became core to the Playhouse. The first year I was there, my salary was paid for by grants, but I've now been there for 8 years,
Well, once
and the grants have
your
run.
value is known,
Yes.
then it's able to be
My value,
Well
but
done,
also the value of these programs.
programs
I will say
themselves.
a little bit of both.
okay.
A little bit of both.
Yes.
But the value of these programs and the value of reaching the communities. And so we also had a grant that was focused on arts in the military and what does that engagement look like. And one of the first things that I took on was the Veterans Playwriting Workshop. And I will say it predated me by a little bit. There was a workshop that happened over a weekend in partnership with Brown University. Again, because of the grant, it doesn't matter. I'll go into the weeds if I started to try to figure that out. But it was just kind of a one-off over the weekend sort of thing. But it was something that we wanted to see if we could continue. Again, we had this grant in partnership with Maurice DeCal, who was running this program at Brown. And so then we did, I think, something like an 8-week workshop, meeting once a week. And what was formed was this cohort of writers, these people who just had stories to tell. And you don't have to write about your military experience. You can write about anything. One of the plays to come out of it was, and again, connections on connections. The very first Veterans Playwriting Workshop, Cherie Engel was one of the participants. She is now a teaching artist for Voices of Our City, what I was talking about earlier, that partnership. And so it stays, you build a network, and that network just keeps growing, and the webs and all the things. Anyway, I'm getting into the weeds. It's very early in the morning.
It's okay.
But Cherie wrote a play called Tampons, Dead Dogs, and Other Disposable Things.
Oh my!
And it was, I know, I have to say the title every time I talk about
I want to
VPW.
see that play.
And again, it's just a beautiful exploration of trauma and finding the place to unleash trauma. And it had nothing to do with her military experience, but other things that she was wrestling with. And Cherie will say that she got a stronger sense of therapy from the work she did at La Jolla Playhouse than the work she did at the VA. And it was ironic to her that it's the same exit off of the 5 to get to both.
You know what? That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
That's actually very true.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
No kidding. It's right on the other side
It's
of the
just on
tree line.
Exactly.
Holy jeez.
And just how powerful that was for her to be taking the exit that she would normally take to go to therapy at the VA, but she's passing right by it and going to the place where she's really getting her healing, which is through being able to write. And so, so veteran VPW, as we affectionately call it, because we love acronyms in this business. So VPW is now going into its 9th year, and we have a structure. We have served. And it's not even about the number. I was about to say we've served dozens of veterans, which is true, but that doesn't sound like a lot when you think about, oh, you've been doing this for 9 years, you do it 3 times a year, you only served dozens. But this is one of those things where it's about the depth of the impact versus the breadth of numbers of people that you're connecting with. And it's that kind of work that you don't think about that when you think of the military. You don't think about creative writers. You don't think about, because you think about artists. You think about, sensitive, vulnerable, needing to be able to reach into a place to access your emotions. When you are in the military, those things are stripped away from you. That access to your emotions is taken away from you. And so to be able to be in this space where that's not only permitted but encouraged and necessary, it's healing.
And theater itself is a healing art, and we're seeing that more and more. What do you think about, and you can decline to answer if you would like, what's happening right now with the Kennedy Arts Center and censorship, and where do we go from here?
It's a good question, and I won't decline to answer, but I mean the root answer is I don't know. It is a scary time, period.
Yes.
Right?
Uncertainty.
But we're in a period of uncertainty, but I will say artists in a way kind of live in a state of uncertainty.
Yes.
Oh, very.
We do.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
We don't always know where the next job is coming from. We, look at what has happened, or even over the last few years. So many theaters have had to shut their doors,
Right.
have had to completely change the way that they operate. So adjusting is something that artists and theater people are used to doing, and artists, we are who we are, and you can't take our heart away. You can't take our spirit away. You can't take our stories away. It may change how and where we're able to tell them, but you can't take that away from us. And so in terms of the Kennedy Center, it's sad what's happening there, but we'll find another place to do it. You can have the Kennedy Center.
Right.
It's sad. It's sad that it's getting into the NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts, funds a lot of artists in this country. One of the current grants that we have that is helping to support the arts in the military. It's a Creative Forces grant. It's through the National Endowment of the Arts, through also partnerships, but that's an NEA grant. And it's hard to think that an organization that has funded those kinds of programs for so long is now being told that they can't. It's hard to fathom, but we're also finding that with everyone that is feeling like they're having to be censored, be silenced a bit, that there are ones that are raising up and saying, we're going to do more.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that we are able to find that balance. My hope is that we will be able to find that balance and continue and to keep doing what we do.
And it just shows you how powerful the arts are, that form of human expression. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a target.
Well, and exactly. And it's funny, and I know we're going to a little bit of a weighty place here, but you know, even in terms of the pandemic, and we talk about who was essential and what was essential, when we were all locked in our homes, it was artists that kept us sane. We don't think about it that way because what we were doing was just pressing a button on our remote.
True.
And turning on whatever was streaming.
Yeah.
But those were artists.
Music.
The music, what kept us sane, what kept us close, what kept us connected was the things that we were able to consume, the art that we were consuming. But we don't think about turning on the radio as consuming art.
Right.
We don't think about turning on Netflix as consuming art.
Mm.
But it is. Those are artists. Those were essential workers.
It isn't just entertainment.
It isn't just entertainment. It's livelihood, but it's healing.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully in terms of the where are we going, my other hope is that we are starting to really recognize the humanity, the artists, that this is a livelihood. I am hoping that we are going to a place where we are giving space for people to show up as themselves. There's a practice that's starting to happen in a lot of rooms where you start a meeting or a gathering by allowing space for people to say their access needs. And that's something that's very new and uncomfortable for people. But as a practice, just to be able to say, even at rehearsal the other day, to be able to say, I'm feeling weird and anxious today, so I'm going to be a little bit fidgety. I'm going to be moving. My access need is that I need to allow my body to move. And that feels like such a funny thing to say, but just putting it into the space and saying it out loud, it allowed me to relax and say, I don't have to be weird. I don't have to pretend that I'm not anxious. I get to be me. I get to be anxious and let it out. Even down to having a glass of water. We don't think of that as an access need, but just saying, I might be taking sips of water as we speak. Or one of the things that we're starting to see on a lot of Zoom meetings is people saying, when we're recognizing access needs, you'll see me looking down because I'm taking notes. It's not that I'm not paying attention. And recognizing that so that when we see her putting her head down, you're not going, oh, so she's checking out. She's looking at her phone. Because we've come to those expectations. And so putting that into the space just alleviates assumptions. And allows us to be exactly who we need to be in that moment. And so I hope that we're leaning more into that as well.
And it kind of makes sense. If you think about it, it reminds me a little bit of what we do as artists. It's kind of akin to child play because your imagination needs to be so free. And in the classroom, when you're little, they give you a bouncy ball if you're fidgety or a fidget spinner, and you talk about, well, how are you feeling today? So that you can, or even in acting classes, how are you feeling today? Bring it into the room. Let's get it out there. So it makes sense that seems like that would be an organic evolution to meeting spaces in the arts.
So before you get out of here, could you talk a little bit about Talk Back Tuesday?
Yeah, Talk Back Tuesdays is a practice at La Jolla Playhouse where 2 Tuesdays during the performance, the actors will come and join us on stage and talk about the shows that they're doing. That there's 3 Talk Back Tuesdays and Discovery Sunday are two of the engagement programs that we have at La Jolla Playhouse.
And you lead those.
I have historically been co-leading with other members of the Learning and Engagement Department.
How'd you get that lead? Do you pull things out of people? Or?
I do. I again, these are things that I didn't realize as a skill set until people say, "Oh, you're really good at this." Oh, and then you see other people doing it, and you're like, "Oh, they're not very." And so I find that I'm one of those people. I'm a terrible panelist because I'm so used to being a moderator. I'm a natural moderator. and I will just take over a conversation and not take over the conversation and take up space that doesn't belong to me.
Yeah.
But my instinct is to drive the conversation, or like none of this interview that we've done here today was planned out. We didn't have questions. It's just been a conversation.
Correct.
And one thing leads to the next. And so to me, hosting a talkback is just being a conversationalist. I'll have a list of questions that I want to ask, but I'll do exactly what you're doing. Oh, well, I want to know more about that, actually. Tell me. There was one time I was hosting a conversation, and I forget what they brought up, but it was two of the actors from 3 Summers of Lincoln. And I was like, you know what? I actually want to know more about that. I'm going off script for a second, but that's okay. I wrote the script, and they don't know what's on the script, so it's fine. So tell me more about this, And so I think that I just naturally like engaging with people, and I'm one of those people. I'm not good at small talk because I just want to get into the meat of things.
Yeah.
That's why I wasn't good on the dating apps, because people, they're like, I feel like I'm in an interview right now. I'm like, I don't know how to get to know you, so I'm asking you, but people just want, surface conversation. I'm not good at surface conversation.
Get to the nitty gritty.
Exactly. I want to get to the meat of it.
So we're going to be Jacole Kitchen for a couple of seconds. This is a POV of Jacole Kitchen wearing her director hat. But I really love the quote on your notebook. You are worthy of every good thing.
Yeah.
And the green on the cup, everything here is telling us about you, I feel.
My Black Lives Matter sticker on my laptop.
Yes.
It's funny that you chose this picture, because this is such a quintessential first day of rehearsal picture that we will always take. You have to, because I have my name on my director with the book and my notebook. But I'm very much I'm still analog. I'm old school. I take notes in a notebook, and so I always go into Barnes and Noble or whatever bookstore I'm going to find a good notebook. And that one popped out to me in a way that I needed it. I think that I could feel myself sort of transitioning into being a director more. That was first day of rehearsal for Gin versus the Beach, which was my 3rd pop tour. Was that my last pop tour? Yeah, that was my 3rd pop tour, a youth touring production that goes into schools that La Jolla Playhouse has been doing for 30 years. And I've had the privilege of directing 3 of them. But I think that I knew that my life was starting to transition a little bit into directing more. And transitions are uncomfortable.
Right.
Even ones that we know are right for us, even when the pull feels good, there's still that thing in the back of your mind that is questioning, am I worthy of this? Can I do this? Is this what I really want? What are people going to say? What are people going to think? And I think I was at a time where I needed to be reminded that I am worthy of every good thing that's coming my way. Because when you're on a path, I'm on the verge. My access need right now is that I'm on the verge of getting emotional, so you might see me trying to hold back on that. But shoot, I forgot where I was going, but I'm going to get back there. You're worthy of every good thing. When you're in these transitions, even when you're moving forward, you have self-doubt. And you wonder, it was the organic path, I found it. You had said earlier about my path being very organic. And when it does feel like I've just kind of been floating forward, I forget how hard I've worked. I forget that I've earned every step forward and every step up, but it sort of just feels like I've been gently pushed in every direction that I've gone. And I feel like from the outside, it might be easy to assume that things have come easy to me because I've made it look easy, because it's in some ways felt easy. But I've worked really, really hard to get to where I am. And I am constantly having to remind myself of that. And so I love that you chose that picture and pointed out that notebook, because I absolutely
It's beautiful.
Needed that. Thank you. Thank you.
It's like art.
It is.
Yeah.
Did we mention a new position?
What's next?
Yes. So I am currently continuing on that transition, and I am moving into a role where I'm going to be supported solely as a director. I am moving out of the administrative portion of my career for now and just get to be embraced as an artist.
Get ready, universe. That's what's up.
And this is, and that's why I found myself starting to get emotional as we were talking, because even going into this transition, I'm having to remind myself, no, I've worked really, really hard to get here, and I have been of service to this institution, to La Jolla Playhouse. And it has been my honor to be of service, and seeing things that are going to be my legacy: the Veterans Playwriting Workshop, the theater workshop with Voices of Our City. The impact, the statements of impact that people email me of, you said this thing to me, and it meant the world to me. I think about this thing that you said to me every day, and because you said this, my career path turned this way. And we don't always know the impact that we've had on people. Yeah. And so I've been getting to see a lot of that as I'm moving into this new transition, into this new role, into this new hat. I'm stripping away some of the other hats, and I'm just wearing the director hat, and it feels so good. It feels real nice, and I look cute in my hat.
You look cute.
So I'm loving it, and I've always loved what I've done at every step, but this is the first time, because I have just been floating on this lovely career path. I've loved everything that I've done, but this is the first time I've chosen it. Every other part of my career has chosen me. This is the first time that I have chosen the direction that I want to go, and
empowering.
And now the world is lifting up.
Wow.
To meet you, to meet that.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Gives me goosebumps.
Me too.
Wow. And our time has flown by like...
It has.
Man.
Wow.
This has been really, really lovely. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you for coming onto the show.
Thank you. Thank you for finally asking me onto the show.
Oh, that.
I know.
Right?
I'll take that hit. Yeah.
No, this has been an absolute pleasure. It was so fun coming and just getting to sort of re-explore where I've been, especially knowing where I'm going.
Yeah.
And so before we roll out of here, just remind folks about your play up in L.A.
Thank you,
the
Suburban
run
Black
dates
Girl. Yes, Suburban Black Girl at Outside In Theater, April 19th through May 13th. Performances are Saturdays through Tuesday, and we happen to open the day after my birthday, so I'm getting the greatest gift that a girl
Happy
can get
early
for her
birthday.
Thank you very much. So come out and party with us, Suburban Black Girl. Oh, I love that poster. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, it is. That's the business right there.
Yeah.
That's hot.
Yeah. So yeah, come check us out in LA,
support.
Outside In Theater. OutsideInTheater.com.
You can drive there, take the train there.
Exactly.
Yes, get there.
What
fast.
does Alita Adams say? I don't care how you get there, just get there if you can.
That's right.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jacole Kitchen, and you'll always have a seat here. To come
Yes, we'll have to have you back after you've
Yes, I would love to come back, and there will be
your new position.
Lots more to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to hold you to that. All right, partner. We're going to roll out here, and we are.
We did not
unintentionally,
coordinate this.
We're the same.
These outfits.
We went to opening night last night of Ain't Too Proud, and so that's good. There was no memo to wear the swag, but that's
Maybe
what
I should turn around, show the back of mine. There we go.
Oh, That's right. Look at that.
Oh, there you go.
That is plenty fancy. That is fancy full.
All right. And that concludes another episode of
Theater Corner Green Room. And thank you for tuning in to another episode, and we'll see you next time.